school team of Greater Hartford. Edwin leaving Greater Hartford for the capital.
Hi, I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Mr. Carty has been involved in a number of social and community-based organizations. He is one of the founders of the Caribbean American Society of Hartford. Served its CASH president from 1971 until 1975, and then again from 1992 and 1993. Mr. Carty is one of the founders of the West Indian Day Parade in 1962. Was an advisor to the Caribbean American Society's Capital Boy Scout Troop number 473, a member of the Jamaica Ex-Police Association, and board member of the West Indian Foundation. Other affiliations include the Hartford Downtown Lions Club, member of the West Indian Foundation, Sheldon Oak Central, Secretary of Literacy Volunteers of Greater Hartford, the Town of Windsor Human Relations Commission, and board member of Center City Churches. He was also a notary public and a justice of the peace. In 1956, he married the love of his life, Eileen Morgan Carty, and they have 3 children. And he also have 4 grandchildren. So ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a pleasure to introduce you, our moderator for tonight, Mr. Edwin Carty.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. I only paid him $20 to say all of that.
That's all?
Yeah. But it's indeed a pleasure being here, and I don't know whether it's my omission or commission, but I would have to do it, but I feel deeply and greatly honored to be here. Thanks, first of all, to the Blue Hills Civic Association and the Greater Hartford Chapter of the NAACP for calling this forum together. I think it is very important that we be part of what is happening in our communities, and yet to get our leaders in politics to tell us what is happening, and that's why we are here this evening. We're going to have some fine discussions, and then there are 3 words that I think permeates all of this. We will remain civil, substantive, and constructive in all of our discussions. Hopefully, that we can agree to disagree without becoming disagreeable. As you are aware, for those who know me, time is my thing. It rules our lives. They say we can't define it, although we know it's divided into those 3 segments: the past, the present, and the future. The past is irretrievably gone. The present is blown away with a breath, and the future never arrives. And I'll go one better for you. Even the clock on the wall that isn't working shows the correct time twice in 24 hours. So having said that, let us regard time and stick to it, as we will have the candidates timed for the time they will speak, so as to give everybody an opportunity. So without further ado, I'm going to get started on the questions. There are a number of written questions that were given to me, and we're going to start with them. The 3 gentlemen at the table. First is Mr. Shawn from the Hartford City Council, who is president of the Hartford City Council. In the middle is Senator Coleman, who is our president senator and is an incumbent. And on the far left is Mr. Len Walker, who is the head of security at Hartford Hospital and a community person for many, many years in the Greater Hartford area. So give them a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier in my bio, they said I was a policeman in Jamaica. One of our mottos in Jamaica is to act without malice or ill will, without favor or affection. And it is on that premise that we will work tonight. Our first question for all candidates. What types of new industries or businesses do you hope to attract to Hartford, Bloomfield, and Windsor to facilitate economic development? So whomever wants to take it first.
I'll take a stab at the question. As far as new industries are concerned, I think what I'd like to do is to attract greater manufacturing concerns to the Hartford region, and include Bloomfield, Hartford, and Windsor. Additionally, as many of you who know me know, I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship within the African American community. And so I would like, particularly for young people, to encourage them to think about a product or service that they may provide in order to support themselves and their families. Additionally, there is a big trend toward the green industry, solar energy types of activities, that sort of thing, recycling and renewables. So I would say that we should, as a region, be consistent with that trend and provide opportunities in that vein. Additionally, from the state level, we've tried to expand our efforts and initiatives with respect to the biosciences and the aerospace industry. Some of those jobs are extremely technical in nature, and I think in order to prepare the members of our community for that, particularly young people, we probably need to expand and build upon the vocational and technical school system that we currently have in place. But as far as the industries are concerned, manufacturing, green technologies, entrepreneurship, aerospace technologies and biosciences would be the way I would go. Thank you.
Good. Just so everybody knows, the candidate has 3 minutes for each question, okay? And there will be time on that. That's why I spoke about time earlier. Okay, whomever next wish to go.
I ditto the sentiments and the ideas of Senator Coleman. I do know for a fact that the state of Connecticut has a lot of service sector jobs, and I really think we need to really move away from those service sector jobs and look towards manufacturing. While technology is portable, and so a lot of the technological jobs have moved overseas, costs are increasing significantly to the point where employers are now looking to bring back some of those manufacturing jobs. In the city of Hartford, there's a lot of underemployment, and the city bears most of the unemployment. So what I've suggested in the past is that we look at some of these vacant buildings and try to use some economic engine and bring some incentives to employers to use those vacant lots or buildings, but we have to also give them incentives. We got to start thinking about what Georgia does, what the state of Georgia does. It says, before you come to my city or to my town, I want to make sure that you're comfortable with the way the school systems are, the services that we offer to our streets and our employers. Safety, public safety is a big issue. And we also have to provide tax incentives. Let's face it, states are competing with others. So the manufacturing sector is an area that we really have to look to and not just write it off as not coming back to our shores.
Thank you. And so some of this, I guess I'll start with echoing on manufacturing. It's something that I've talked about for several years now, and I agree that there's something about manufacturing. And when you look at economic development and job growth, particularly as Hartford City Council President, I've been focused on what type of job growth can we connect with our residents in the city. Now, as a state senator, that's a broader conversation looking at Bloomfield, Windsor, and the region. And so, but I think manufacturing is something that, when I look at the experience of Pratt & Whitney over the years, and the power of Pratt & Whitney to take a number of people, not necessarily with advanced degrees, but to provide solid jobs to raise a family. That's why I've been a proponent of that. We won't have another Pratt & Whitney, but I'm fond of saying, if we can find the next 10 to 15 mini Pratt & Whitney's manufacturing, that will be something that will be significant for our area. In addition to that, I think we have to build upon areas where we're already strong. And so that includes the arts and culture. That's something that we have a strategic advantage of in the region, and we should continue to focus on that and support that industry and what it produces. Health and bioscience. We have more healthcare, science-related jobs in the Greater Hartford area, and many of them right here in Hartford, and that's something that we should continue to build upon in terms of a sector. The other area is just innovation generally, and there are a number of challenges that we've launched in the city of Hartford for innovative ideas on entrepreneurship, and that's something that's ongoing. In fact, the city of Hartford was selected for funding a grant, one of 4 cities nationwide to get this funding to encourage these types of activities. And then more broadly, I want to come back to just the small business sector generally. And there are lots of areas that the small business sector serves, but I think that's where major job growth is coming from in our country and our nation, and it's no different. In small businesses, those are the businesses where owners tend to live in the community, and they tend to hire people that live in those communities. And so I will continue to be a strong advocate for small business.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody have any rebuttal from anybody's statements? If not, we move on to the second question.
Well, Mr. Carty, not so much in the way of rebuttal, I would be in agreement, and I've said this on a number of occasions with respect to support for the small business sector, but also wanted to highlight what I feel that I've done in the way of putting people to work. And the first thing that I would point to is when I became a member of the General Assembly, there were 3 African-American judges, which represented less than 1% of the total number of judges. Since I've become chairman, there are 25 African-American judges, which represents about 12.5% of the total number of judges. And significantly, when people move up from public defender's position, prosecutor's positions, positions within the Attorney General's office and become judges, that opens up more avenues for employment of attorneys, particularly attorneys of color who want to move into the public defender's office, the prosecutor's office, and the Attorney General's office. So I'm proud of my efforts in that regard. And additionally, as a state senator, I've always made an effort to provide opportunities for people from the community to work at the General Assembly. And in that regard, I've had a number of aides who resided within the 2nd Senatorial District, and I've had a number of interns who work with my office. There are a number of residents of the 2nd Senatorial District who've been placed in staff positions with the General Assembly as well as with the Judicial Department directly as a result of my efforts. I think I've done a fairly good job of bringing to the attention of members of the community the opportunities that might be available to my office for them to work with the state government. Thank you, Mr. Carty.
Okay, thank you. And Candidate, will you please give your attention as you speak to Mr. Roberts over there, who is keeping the time for us. So to keep everything on track, you will look at him once in a while and we will tell you how many seconds you have leave before we move on. Okay, any else, quick rebuttal from anybody else?
Well, I guess I'd like to add that, I certainly applaud the effort of the governor and Senator Coleman as chairman of the Judiciary Committee with diversifying the bench. But I'd like to respectfully suggest that when we look at employment initiatives, there are, and I'm a lawyer, right? And so God knows I'm happy if there are more folks that look like me on the bench, or I have greater opportunities on the bench. It's very important. But when we talk about employment, we really have to look broadly at a lot more people, and just being realistic about it, who don't have advanced degrees, and our efforts have to be focused a lot more intensely on that segment of our society. And so we're not going to change the staggeringly high unemployment rate in our city unless we address that group of people. And so I would just encourage us to focus on that.
Yes, I don't have a rebuttal, but I'd like to add that it's Hartford, Bloomfield, and Windsor. And so we represent, we hope to represent a broad spectrum of individuals. A lot of people who live in the suburbs are either underemployed or unemployed, and they have the same problems a lot of people do in the city of Hartford. It's all about jobs, people. It's about jobs, and it's about good and sustainable jobs. We have to have long-term plans and long-term goals, and we have to determine at what point we're making any advances or if we need to regroup. Good benefits help the entire community. Good benefits in a job help every single town that's a part of the 2nd Senatorial District, because those benefits help people to send their kids to school. They may have cash that they can spend in their neighborhoods to support small businesses, and they are the big economic engine. So it's not just judges or attorneys, it's everybody. And all those people out there who are hurting, who need jobs, need every representative to do the best job they can to help.
Okay, we move on to the second question. What improvements do you feel are necessary to ensure safe and productive elementary and high schools in Hartford, Windsor, and Bloomfield? Senator.
The question is, I'm not senator yet.
No, I
know. People keep doing that. I appreciate it, but not yet. So it's for safe and productive schools. So in terms of if we're talking about quality schools, I just want to be clear on the question. Are we talking about safety?
I'll read it again. They were giving me, I didn't write that. So it came from the folks up there. What improvements do you feel are necessary to ensure safe and productive elementary and high schools in Hartford, Windsor, and Bloomfield?
So I think there are two things in there. So one is, I'll take safety. One, we obviously in Hartford, violence has been a problem, and continual efforts to make our communities safer generally. With respect to schools and productive schools, the achievement gap in Connecticut is the worst in the nation. So we have to continue to focus on that. We have to, I think, universal preschool at the foundational stages is something that most experts will agree it's effective. And so the achievement gap, we spent a lot of time talking about this at the middle and high school levels. We spent a lot of time debating charter schools, magnet schools, and different versions. But I would suggest that we don't spend enough time outraged as a community that every child does not have the opportunity for a quality preschool environment. And so when different children from different communities walk into kindergarten, they are not equally prepared. And if you can't read by the 3rd grade level, that'll say a lot about the future trajectory for that child's educational experiences. And so that is probably one of the single biggest things that I think, and it's an area where most people can agree that we need to focus. Additionally, we need smaller class sizes. It's another one of those areas where, and I think it's terrible that the things that we can agree on in terms of public education that are effective that we don't do. And so I've been an advocate for additional class sizes. And all these things, people say it takes money. Of course it does for a number of these things, but places where we can build consensus, where educational experts agree, that makes sense. I think it's immoral that we don't do everything possible around those areas first and then build on the other more controversial aspects of education reform. Thank you.
And I believe that the solution to making schools more effective and more safe is dependent upon an effective collaboration between administrators, teachers, parents, and members of the community. I think we all need to take a greater responsibility for the nurturing and the development of our young people. And in that regard, in the development of an effective curriculum, the community has to have something about that, as well as parents and teachers and administrators. Again, I would continue the initiatives that have occurred from the state level, and that is in regard to early childhood education programs. And that would include pre-K programs as well as all-day kindergarten programs. And so, as long as we're effectively intervening into the lives of young people and imparting values that the community thinks are important, we do that by making certain that for a good part of their early years, for as many hours as possible, those young people are under the supervision of responsible adults who are teaching them things like character and work ethic, respect for authority, respect for adults, the value of human life. I think we need, in order to make schools effective and make them safe and free from violence, to work with the minds of our young people and the character of our young people, first and foremost. I have always been of the belief that in order for teachers in the classroom to be effective, those teachers need to have some investment in the community and some stake in the young people that they are directing, guiding, and developing. And so we probably need to initiate programs in our public schools that will provide some incentive for people who are residing in the community to actually be placed in the classrooms of our public schools. They have direct contact on a daily basis with the youngsters that are growing in that public school. I think parent-teacher frequent communication and contact is important. And I think the last resort should be the suspension or expulsion of students for non-criminal behavior. Thank you.
I think we're all in agreement that early childhood education is key. It's a critical component to continue for any student to continue along their educational path. So we have to prepare our young people for their future. And what do I mean by that? In a global economy, unless we start thinking outside the box and looking at actual curriculums, what are we teaching our kids? And in a digital age, do we need to change things around to offer different course content so that when they become adults, and they are our future and they will become adults, that they can compete in this global economy? So the old ways of doing things, looking at how we are educating our kids, is subject to some change. And somebody needs to take a look at this prism and ask ourselves, how many different levels of light are we looking for? And what do I mean by that? Start focusing on the sciences in public schools. There are a lot of great kids who go to public school, graduate, and go on to do wonderful things. But we've started to look at our educational system And what we're in essence saying is that we don't trust public education. So now the state is issuing all these grants for charter schools. And then there are lotteries. So if we take back that pool, take all that money that we're expending and saying, well, one school is better than the other, put everything back into public education. Reach out to our teachers. Some of them are really hardworking. They mean well. Embrace them and encourage them by saying, here are incentives. And if you do a great job in the classroom, you will be rewarded. Instead, they're being told it's all about the tests, right? So let's change everything around. Look at it in a different light. And again, I agree with Senator Coleman. There has to be a collaboration between parents, teachers, and students. Some folks in homes nowadays, they're single parents. They're trying to put food on the table. They don't have the time to spend with their kids outside of school. So put them in some after-school programs. And those of us, like the 3 of us on this stage, if we go out to meet with a couple kids, a couple days a week, spend a couple hours with that young man, we may be able to influence that mind to say, stay in school, study hard, instead of going on the street corner listening to the gangbang.
Okay, in the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, and to the candidates, we do have a number of questions, so we'll cut the time to 2 minutes for each senator to answer each question and move on from there. We do have a number of questions, and we would like to get through as many of them as possible. We will get out 2 minutes for each question. Here comes the next one, which Mr. Walker will be the first speaker on it. What are your proposals for a more equitable property and commercial property tax contribution in Hartford? What are your proposals for a more equitable property and commercial property tax contribution in Hartford?
Well, I've studied some of this stuff in the city, and I know that it is inequitable. And I know that, for example, commercial buildings are dealt with a lot different than a regular homeowner would be. So the tax problem is a complex one. It's so complex that the city of Hartford put together a task force to study this issue. And out of that task force, I guess there are supposed to be suggestions and recommendations about how to fix it. But at the current tax rate in the city, it is beyond ridiculous. I've talked about the fact that the cost on a $100,000 home is what, about $7,400, whereas in Bloomfield and Windsor, it's about $3,000. So you're paying more than double in the city than you are in the suburbs. The entire tax issue needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed today.
Thank you, sir. Well, I think that this question relates to the very first question that was asked, and my response would be that in general terms, we need to broaden the tax base. We need to create more taxpayers, both individual taxpayers and institutional taxpayers in the city of Hartford. Let me begin by saying what I wouldn't do. Given that the mill rate in the city of Hartford is 74.3%, given that many of the issues that Mr. Walker talked about prevail in terms of the burdensome nature of taxes on residents of the city of Hartford, I would not engage in a program designed for parties to purchase the tax liens on the properties of the homeowners in the city of Hartford, many of whom are on fixed incomes, many of whom, after the sale of such tax liens, are subjected to very exploitative and abusive treatment on the part of those individuals who purchase the tax liens. That is an abominable program, and if anything, it should be brought in-house so that people have the opportunity to enter into payment plans and address the arrearage of the property taxes that may exist on their properties. But what we need to do in order to expand the tax base so we can avoid problems like that is to attract additional industries, as well as to build up the small business sector and incentivize small business owners in the city of Hartford to hire more people who live in the neighborhoods, thereby not only permitting them to support themselves and their families, but giving them the opportunity to enjoy what we enjoy, become taxpayers. Thank you, sir.
Councilman.
Thank you. And so I guess as the only person who's actually struggled with doing something like real with this issue, as City Council President, I would say that we did put together a task force to look at these issues. And in order to address the disparity, that's something that's going to take, best case, probably 30 years to change that. The most significant thing we can do is actually invest, develop, encourage development on every city piece of land that is vacant, that has been vacant for decades. We need to bring it onto the tax rolls and have commercial development, any development that actually pays taxes. That's something that's going to reduce the burden on the existing taxpayers of our city. So any efforts that we can do to actually encourage development in the city, we should do that. 2, continue to focus on small businesses. We've had a number of them over the past decade actually leave our city because of the challenges. So we have to continue to focus on that sector. 3, with respect to the sale of tax liens, every year, this has been a practice that has gone on for at least the last decade. And so what I will say is that every year since I've been on the council, that has been diminished in terms of the amount. And actually, rather than just lamenting the fact or complaining about it, a number of us actually rolled up our sleeves and said, because this is painful, right, to listen to residents, and especially when these get sold to predators. And so we've actually made it so that anyone that enters into a payment plan, any homeowner, not commercial property owners, any homeowner that enters into a payment plan can be taken off the list. And won't be selling, and it's automatic. And last year, I've been actually underreporting what took place last year. It's more than, I've been saying 125 residents came in 1 week and got off the list. It's actually about 164.
Thank you. Our next question is one from the audience.
May I have a couple of seconds of rebuttals there?
No, time is against us, Senator Coleman. We got to move on because there's so many
initial
questions.
rules provided for some rebuttals. What I'd just like to say is that if we are making progress on the whole program of purchase of tax liens, I think anybody in this room just need to visit foreclosure court any day and see the number of Hartford residents who are in that court subjected to foreclosures, not on their mortgages, but on their tax liens. And there are two firms in the state, or 2 firms that have contracted with the city, Connecticut Tax Liens and one other law firm that is engaged in ruthlessly pursuing foreclosure actions. I think everybody in this room probably knows someone who's a resident of the city of Hartford who is being subjected to a foreclosure because of an inability to pay the taxes on their property.
That's right. It's awful. You're looking at the one person sitting at this table who's actually been doing something constructive about it to eventually eliminate it.
I wouldn't say the only person at the table is doing something constructive about those tax liens. The people I've talked to, and some of the folks I know who have gone through this process, it's a horrible process. Never heard about putting in for payment plans, things happening. So that's constructive. I don't know what under-constructive is.
Okay. Our next question for people with felonies, and do you think there should be more done in this area? Read it the second time. What type of economic growth are you going to provide for people with felonies, and do you think there should be more done in this area?
Sure.
Councilman, yeah, read the first time.
Okay. So I think, it's obviously something that we've thought about a lot in the city of Hartford, and we are committed to Hartford being a second chance city and a society. First time I ran for office, I knocked on a lot of doors, and it was remarkable the number of people with felonies. And if we are going to, very clear to me, if we're going back to address employment, address these issues for Hartford, right? And there are different issues for Bloomfield, some different issues for Windsor. And so we have to be able to create job opportunities for people who have a record. Something very specific that we've done recently. I worked with a minority contractor in the city, masonry contractor, who was willing to train people who are felons, and said, I'll give them a skill. And the city of Hartford, our contribution to this was, we're going to give you work. We're going to give you a contract to actually train people, teach them how to do masonry work, give them sidewalks to train on, and we have, as you might imagine, walking through the city, we have plenty of sidewalks that need repair. And so, and we've allocated the money to do that. And for everyone that comes forward, most of that class were felons. Most of that class that went through with the training. And for everyone that comes to the city to do that type of work, we have a pool of people who are trained and are ready to do the work, and they will be required to hire that pool of people. That's something constructive and concrete. Too often, job training programs and issues are, the job trainers get most of the training, and most of the jobs from the job training. We need programs that will connect with residents with actual jobs at the end, and that's what I've done. Thank you. Mr. Harper?
I'm a pragmatic person, and so throughout my life I've tried to be as pragmatic as is possible. A felony doesn't address what the act is that was committed, and we have to differentiate. We're not talking about a misdemeanor, we're talking about a felony. So let me drill down into that question. First, when a person with a felony conviction, when they apply for a job, whether it's online or in person, there is a questionnaire of some type. It's either in a paper form or the job interviewer is going to ask that question. And let's be real about this. Once you put on that paper felony, the chances of getting that job are rather slim. Okay? So that's the reality. However, a lot of people have felonies on their records because they were wrongly accused. And so what we have to do as a society is say to just look at the justice system in itself. And you look at inner cities, disproportionately, people get arrested and have more convictions on their records than they do in the suburbs, right? So what are we doing as a society to keep our young people from going out and getting themselves in a mess that will follow them for quite a long time? And it says we need to engage these minds. Engage these minds, give them an incentive to do better. And teach our young kids, you know what? To go out and become lawyers. These two guys are lawyers. So when they get unjustly accused, they have good attorneys working in our public defender's office, not just going to corporate, to defend these young people against some of these really outrageous charges that they have. And the bottom line to solve the problem for the people with felonies is to get them into programs. Get them into programs, something that they can use to get a job skill.
If this question is important to you, you need to listen to the fact that Connecticut is a leader as far as reentry initiatives is concerned. Connecticut is a leader in the nation, one of the leading states in the nation as far as reentry initiatives and second chance opportunities for people who are convicted of criminal offenses is concerned. And that's as a result of collaboration between the Senate Chair of the Judiciary Committee, which is myself, the Undersecretary of OPM, and the Governor and the Governor's office. And we come to a recognition that for everybody who's convicted to serve time, more than 90% of those people will eventually return to the community. And when they return, we want them not to recidivate. And if they don't have an opportunity to work, that's exactly what's going to happen. And so we've done a few things. I'll try to name a few of those. We've devised what is called the Certificate of Rehabilitation, which basically means that if you do certain programs, if you do certain things, you can receive this certificate, and it will enable you to go to an employer and apply for a job without the employer holding your incarceration or record of conviction against you. The other thing that we've done is we've put in place some set-aside initiatives in connection with construction projects, whereby a certain percentage of those jobs are to be given to ex-offenders. And the final thing that I'll mention, because my time is running out, there is a long list of things that we've done, is we've adopted at the state level the Ban the Box initiative, which some other municipalities within the state have also adopted.
Okay. Let's move on to the next question. It's a very important one here. This question pertains to the MDC Clean Water Project. As a homeowner on Granby Street, I'm curious to know what is your awareness of the scope of the MDC Clean Water Project and of the billion in costs. How much money is set aside to restore properties that have been impacted by this construction? What will you do to ensure that these property restoration efforts will take place? Senator Coleman.
Okay. If anyone in the room doesn't know, I will let them know that the Clean Water Project is a $2 billion project. The MDC has $2 billion in order to complete the project, which involves the separation of sanitary sewer systems from stormwater sewer systems in the city of Hartford. It is a 20-year project, and we're in about the 5th year of that project. I'm not sure who has had dealings with the MDC other than paying your water bill or whatever, but I've been wrestling with the MDC in order to hold their feet to the fire in connection with responsibilities to the community that is primarily being disrupted, and the residents are primarily being inconvenienced because of streets being dug up, businesses are being interrupted, people are losing money because customers can't get to where the business is located in order to conduct business. I don't have appointments to the MDC, but there are some characters who are part of the MDC who exhibit a certain degree of arrogance and disregard for the residents of the city of Hartford in connection with the Clean Water Project. If I had appointments to the MDC, those individuals who were appointed from the city of Hartford would no longer be appointed.
Mr. Walker?
It is a given that it's a huge problem and a huge inconvenience. You cannot miss the signs that are up. You cannot miss the detours that people have to make. It is really a huge inconvenience. The concept was good. You want to separate your stormwater from your regular sewage. That's fine. However, someone, somewhere, has to make the NDC truly accountable. If there's $2 billion available for this project, you know, it's an aging infrastructure. Those sewer pipes needed to be dug up and replaced, whatever. But the idea of maybe a customer service person who goes around the neighborhood and listens to the complaints and take the complaints beyond the people doing the actual work. You know, some of us, we can come up with ideas, means to ease the burden of the inconvenience. And another thing I noticed, a lot of the people doing the work in the city don't look like me. And that needs to change too.
So, yes, thank you. Senator Coleman mentioned wrestling with the NDC, and that's probably an understatement. The NDC is and has been one of the most arrogant and difficult organizations to deal with in our city. And this major project has been extremely disruptive. And in terms of dealing with it, you know, one of the things that I'll tell you concretely, that the merchants and some of the residents in the Upper Albany area, they got together and they said, we can't withstand what took place on North Main Street, how disruptive that was for so long, and put at least one business out of business, had others struggling. And so we got together, I worked with them, had meetings with Congressman Rawson, NDC leadership, and the community residents in the Upper Albany area, and got a totally redesigned plan, and something that would not be as disruptive, using different technology, smaller holes, not the Granby Street nightmare, because it's been nothing short of a nightmare for an extended period of time. And we're trying to do that proactively with other areas now. Additionally, I've called for the entire NDC leadership and Hartford's commissioners that are represented on that body to meet with the City Council in a public meeting to discuss the Clean Water Project, the status, and what we're going to do going forward to hold them accountable for doing things differently. I think someone mentioned, maybe in your question about whether repairs or a fund, I actually think that there should be, in the budgeting for the Clean Water Project, there should be a fund that deals with the disruption, that business disruption, or they should be required to purchase insurance to cover that, and that deals with homeowner damage. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is very, very short. What would you support, and this is from the audience, what would you support reducing teacher retirement, or would you support reducing teacher retirement from 35 years to 25 or 30 years? That should be a very broad answer for each of those. Councilman Wood. Would you support reducing teacher retirement from 35 years to 25 or 30 years?
Yeah, the short answer is I don't know. I'll confess, I don't know enough. I don't have enough information about even analyzing that. We all would like to work less, and so, but I don't have enough information for that question.
Senator Coleman?
Yes, this has been a perennial issue at the state legislature, and I suppose I might support reducing retirement eligibility for teachers to 30 years. I'm not sure I would go so far as 25 years. I would go to 30 years, and the rationale for that is teachers for a very long time were considerably underpaid, and I always marveled at how little teachers were paid given their role in society. Fortunately, we've addressed compensation with the Education Enhancement Act, and we've lifted teachers' salaries to among the highest in the country. What we didn't address is that all teachers in the state of Connecticut are not part of a municipal retirement system or a state retirement system. They're part of their own independent retirement system, but what they need to take into consideration as far as teachers are concerned is that many of them begin their careers right out of college at a very early age, and they work 30 or more years, reaching whatever ages that they reach. But it's an extended period of time for them to be working at one job in one profession. And so, yeah, I would give great consideration to reducing their retirement eligibility age from 35 to 30 years.
Thank you, Senator Coleman.
I would consider reducing the retirement years for teachers. I think it all comes back to funding and funding sources. If it's a state college or state institution that these teachers are working in, then I think we can do apples to apples and look at the job category itself, compare it and determine if there are other people or other areas that match this job category, and if their retirement ages are less or retirement years are less. So that's something that we really should consider. But when we look at teachers in the municipal systems, it's a budget issue, an annual budget issue with towns. When I served on the Windsor Town Council, I know it always came up. It always came about there are expenses for benefits, there are expenses for salaries, and so I'm not sure how a municipality would look at addressing cutting back the years if they're going to lose money in the long run.
Thank you. Next question. How have you impacted the Hartford public schools, and how do you plan to impact them in the future? The Hartford public school system in the future. How have you impacted the Hartford public school, and how do you plan to impact them in the future? Senator Coleman.
I'd be happy to go first, so I think I went first on the MDC question, but not a problem.
All right.
What we need to take in consideration is that for at least the time that I've been in the Senate, Hartford has received a record number of dollars in terms of state aid to municipalities. And that includes a bunch of statutory grants. It also includes the education cost-sharing formula and pilot and some other things. But Hartford receives annually approximately $253 million from the state of Connecticut. And that's more money than any municipality in the state of Connecticut receives. It's not because Hartford is the biggest municipality in the state. New Haven and Bridgeport are bigger. Hartford certainly has its share of state-owned property and colleges and hospitals. But of that $253 million, 196 million of that money goes to public schools in the city of Hartford. And that's the biggest thing that I think I've done in order to impact the public schools in the city of Hartford. Additionally, on a very personal level, I've been a presence in many of the schools and have tried to be a mentor to many of the students who are attending Hartford Public Schools.
Good.
I have to say that the question was, how would I impact, or how have I impacted the school system in the city of Hartford? I've mentored relatives' kids, family and other family members' kids, mentored them, spent time with them. But at the state level and looking at the Hartford school system, there really is a lot of money going into the Hartford school system. I was amazed at the amount of money that is set aside by the state of Connecticut for magnet schools. And then there are after-school programs. Budgets are tough things to manage. Our personal budgets are tough to manage. I've spoken in public at another forum to say, I really believe the city of Hartford needs to manage its money better. I really believe the city of Hartford really needs to review and revamp what it's doing with the education in the school systems. We've moved away from the public school system and we've said it's not good enough. So let us deal with magnet schools. Now you got kids saying, well, I want to go to the magnet schools because the public schools are bad. We got to revisit that whole concept. So that's how you impact the school system in the city of Hartford.
Thank you. Councilman Wood.
Thank you. The first thing I'd like to comment on is that we talk about how much money Hartford school system has received for education, and it's almost like this is a gift. Just to remind people, there was a whole lawsuit that's ruled, the Connecticut Supreme Court, that our state has an obligation to give every child a quality education. It's not a luxury, it's not a favor, it's an obligation, right? And so I get offended at this notion like, you know, we're doing you a favor. And so Hartford is unique we have 169 towns. Hartford is unique, right? 51% of our property is off the tax rolls. Much of that due to state government and colleges, universities, and other things. We are uniquely situated and we need unique solutions for the city. With respect to what I have done, the city council, we are unfortunately limited to approving the budget of the school system, but we're required to fund them at a minimum funding level, and so that has been done. In addition to that, I have fought for money in our capital improvement plan, our bonding, for Weaver High School to be renovated, and led the charge for that on the city council, for MLK School, the traditional neighborhood schools that have been overlooked, forgotten, as we have these shiny magnet schools, and the schools that have been overlooked. So MLK, Clark Street School, all of these schools on the capital improvement, I have accelerated, either been critical to the funding or accelerated, moved it up in the schedule so it could happen sooner. Additionally, I've promoted early literacy and learning. I had the summer reading, Council President Summer Reading Challenge, where I gave out 7,000 books to every second and third grader in our city, and then challenged them to read in the competition. And so these are concrete things, and at the State Senate, I will continue to be passionate around these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, in the interest of time, it's 7 o'clock, it's 5 minutes after 7.
Mr. Carty, just one correction. The money that comes as a grant, the $253 million and the $196 million that I made reference to in my remarks is separate and apart from the money that comes to the city of Hartford under the Sheff versus O'Neill case. Yep. There is different money that comes to fund magnet schools and other initiatives that try to bring about equality of educational opportunity. So over and above the $196 million that I made reference to, there is even more money that comes to the city of Hartford for the public schools.
Yep. Now, according to the rules that were given to me at 7 o'clock, the senatorial candidates would each have a closing comment, wrap-up comment. So whomever wants to go first, I have no choice in that.
I think I drew first.
Okay. Well, we do for that, so you're on your own.
So I'll do that.
Okay.
So first of all, I'd like to thank you, Mr. Carty. When I was listening to your bio, I was reminded that we should be concerned about you entering the race and running for state senate. But thank you for everything that you've done for our community. Thank the Blue Hills Civic Association. And it's just great to be here at Rawson in Blue Hills, a block away from where I grew up. And just saying, and my wife served as a board member on the Blue Hills Civic Association, so thank you for doing this. And the NAACP, Mohammed Ansari, thank you for your leadership. This race, right, and it's interesting, with NAACP, and we talk about, in this past year I received the Trailblazer in Political Leadership Award from the NAACP. And, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm blazing the trail and making it too hot, right? And so it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. But after a certain point in time, it's healthy for a community to have new ideas, new energy, new engagement. It's healthy. And change can be difficult. Change, not can be, most of the time, change is difficult. And we struggle with this. But I would say, as a community in the 2nd District, as a neighborhood, Blue Hills Civic Association in this neighborhood, is the whole district, change is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. I've worked all my life hard. I've excelled, earned a scholarship to Trinity College, went to one of the best law schools in America, worked hard, came back to work at the top law firm in the state of Connecticut, and then ran for city council. And I'd say, at least my wife and my mother say I've done a good job as city council president. And maybe there are a few others. But my point is, I've worked hard all my life, and it's that same dedication, passion, commitment, work ethic that I want to bring to the 2nd Senatorial District to represent Bloomfield, Windsor, and Hartford. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Whoever do second.
And I also want to thank the Blue Hills Civic Association and the NAACP for sponsoring this forum. This might be the last opportunity for people to get some idea of what our respective records are and what differences there may be that exist between the candidates that are competing for this position. I also want to thank Mr. Carty for the usual sterling job that he's done as moderator of this forum. But I am seeking re-election to the position of State Senate, and I've often said in the forums that have preceded this one that I'm very proud of the fact for the last 20 years I've had the privilege of representing the people in the 2nd Senatorial District. And among the many things that means is that for 10 elections, the residents and voters of the 2nd Senatorial District have come to the polls and they have overwhelmingly supported my re-election. And that doesn't mean that there weren't options, because I've competed against some very formidable opponents, including the former mayor of this city, Carty Saxon-Perry, including the town chair of the town of Windsor, and including Veronica Erie Wilson, who's probably the foremost Republican elected official in the city of Hartford. So I'm very proud of the fact that people who come to the polls and vote in the 2nd Senatorial District have saw fit to send me back. And I'm also proud of the fact that in the course of this election cycle, I received the endorsement of a number of organizations, including the Connecticut Education Association, American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO, a number of individuals and organizations. And so I'm asking you on August 12th to consider change is not necessarily good. People want to assume that change is good.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Thank you. Thank you.
There was a change when we went from President Bill Clinton to President George Bush.
Can I have a rebuttal?
That was not a good change.
Can I have a rebuttal? I'm only making a point. I'm only making a point. We can move on.
It's got to be very brief. You've got 10 seconds.
No, go ahead. Mr. Walker.
Mr. Walker hasn't turned his point yet.
Thank you. These two guys love to go at it.
I know.
I'm just down here on the end. I want to thank Blue Hills Civic Association for inviting me. I want to thank the NAACP for putting together this very wonderful program. And I've been a member of the NAACP for all these years. How come y'all ain't give me no trailblazing stuff? What's up with that trailblazing? I want to bring to this race open dialogue. I want to improve communication. I sat on the Windsor Town Council. I did 2 terms on it. Still a member of the Windsor Democratic Town Committee. And I know that the senator in this seat must visit more and must speak more with the town committees in Hartford, Bloomfield, and Windsor. I've also recommended, and I'm a strong proponent of it, that the senator meets with the city council or town council in each town. We got to bring ideas, new ideas, help to guide the elected officials in each town when they're making decisions that affect taxpayer money. You know, if you sit at the state senate, you are privy to a lot more information than maybe some of the town councilors have, and it can help. So we have to open dialogue. I also want to tell you that I'm running this race. I'm running real hard. You know, David only needed a sling, and he slew Goliath. So I got a sling too. All right? I've been a member of the Greater Hartford community for quite many years. I've owned property. I've lived in the city, lived in Bloomfield. Kids went to school in Bloomfield, and I moved to Windsor. I've been a part of this community. I care about our seniors. I've actually gone out, put together visits to nursing homes, sat and ate meals with people. I've mentored a lot of our kids. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm still here, and I hope that come August 12th, you consider me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lynn Walker. And according to the rules, ladies and gentlemen, 7 o'clock, and we have to bring our state representative McCauley up to the podium now. Thank you. Give him a hand, ladies and gentlemen. Give everybody a hand. And thank you. The auditors have to remain. I don't think they have to leave.
That footage needs to be deleted, sir.